Or do you want to leave it there? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lynne Roblin from the Ontario Public Health Association Nutrition Resource Centre. I would like to welcome you all to our webinar today, which is titled Powering Off, Rethinking Screen Time and Sedentary Behaviour through Public Health Initiatives in Ontario. This webinar is a partnership between the Ontario Public Health Association, the Nutrition Resource Centre, and the Ontario Society of Physical Activity Promoters in Public Health. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping details that I'd like to share. First off, you can download the slide deck on your screen in the bottom right corner. It says Power Off Webinar Final Slides. You can click on that and save those files for your future reference. If you require any technical assistance, please use the chat box with the host, which is in the bottom left side of your screen. And we will be doing questions in the chat box. And someone is not hearing me. Is that better? It's very quiet. Okay. Please let me know in the chat box if you can hear me okay. So yeah, if you have any comments, please use our chat box. If you have any questions, please use the chat box to record those as well. Maybe, should I come off the speaker? Okay, you can hear okay? Yeah. Okay, I will try to be a little louder. So our agenda for today is to discuss the Canadian 24-hour movement guidelines for children. We're looking at also an intervention report on province-wide interventions that occurred through the Healthy Kids Community Challenge. We're going to be hearing more about the health concerns associated with screen time and sedentary behavior. And we're also going to be hearing about reducing screen time and promoting healthy eating. Is it so quiet? We'll have 3 speakers today. Our first speaker is Megan Van Hoeren Wright. She's a coordinator in Global Health Office at McMaster University, where she's worked for the past 11 years. She's also beginning a new faculty position in the School of Academic Studies at St. Clair College in Chatham. Recently, she completed her Master of Public Health degree from the University of Waterloo, where she became actively involved in assessing the impact of screens on children and youth, together with her colleagues from the Screen Time team at the University of Waterloo. Prior to McMaster, Megan worked as a research assistant at the institutions in Scotland and South Korea and completed an internship at the World Health Organization. Our second speaker is Rachel Schafer. She's a public health nurse in Healthy Living at the Thunder Bay District Health Unit. Her portfolio focuses on physical activity, sedentary behavior, sleep, and worksite health promotion. Rachel is chair of the Ontario Society of Physical Activity Promoters in Public Health, Sedentary Behavior Work Group. She also sits on the OSPAP Sleep Work Group, and she is passionate about physical activity and is an avid runner. And I will be the final speaker. My name is Lynne Roblin. I'm a registered dietitian and the Senior Policy Consultant for the Nutrition Resource Centre at the Ontario Public Health Association. I work on building capacity and exchanging knowledge related to healthy eating, food literacy, food and nutrition policies and interventions at the local and provincial level. So we have a lot to cover in the next few minutes, so I'm going to pass it over to Megan to begin her presentation.
Thank you, Lynn. Hello, my name is Megan Van Hoeren Wright. I'm pleased to present on behalf of our Screen Time team from the University of Waterloo. We're a group of 5 women. My colleagues listed here, Lauren, Rowan, Yasminka, and Laura. We formed our group at the university for our capstone group. To complete our MPH degree from the spring through summer of 2018. Together we chose the topic of screen usage among children and youth ages 0 through 12. OPHA was our client. From there, they provided us the opportunity to speak to leaders across the province on how they were implementing interventions from Theme 4's Power Off and Play for the Healthy Kids Community Challenge. Within this session, I'll review our rationale and the scope of the problem, followed by our connection with the Healthy Kids Community Challenge's Theme 4. I'll review interventions and resources from 10 communities across the province and identify the barriers and facilitators of Power Off and Play with recommendations and future direction. As we begin, let's take a moment to consider this cartoon. Can you relate? According to the 2018 Participation Report Card, children and youth are spending more than 40 hours a week in front of a screen-based device. The report further states, Canadian children do not incorporate enough physical activity and include inactive modes of transportation, too much screen time, and limited free play. So what do we mean by screen time? Screen time is considered any time spent with a device, such as a smartphone, tablet, computer, video game, or TV, among other things. Time spent on screen devices while sitting or lying down is considered as recreational or sedentary screen time. The 21st century is changing the way we live with screens embedded into every aspect of our society, from the workplace to our social settings and even within our schools. Technology has provided advantages, while at the same time its use is linked with irregular sleep patterns, obesity, behavioral issues, focus, and attention problems. Screen time is an emerging topic, and there's no assertive causal relationship between screen effects and health indicators. The need to explore findings and best interventions is essential. Utilizing the current Ontario Public Health Standards, impact of excessive screens on children is related to chronic disease prevention and well-being, healthy environments, healthy growth and development, and school health. Healthy eating behaviors, sleep, and positive parenting are topics to be considered under the program standards CDPW and HGD respectively. Looking at the figures across our nation, screens are contributing to the childhood obesity epidemic. Approximately 30% of Canadians, did I pause a moment because of the background noise? Did I wait, Lynn, or go ahead?
We're just checking. Rachel, are you on mute? We have some background.
Hi there. I was on mute.
Oh, you are. Okay, I'm not sure where the background noise is coming from. Are we all on mute? All the participants should be on mute, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. Could everyone make sure their phone is on mute, and we'll continue. Thank you.
Yes.
We're just checking the sound. We seem to have some interference with another line, so just hold on, Megan. Sorry about that.
That's okay, thank you.
Is Louise online? I think that might be coming from her line.
Okay, shall I go ahead? Lynn, please just let me know when you're ready.
I think that sounds better. Yes, I would go ahead.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Looking at the figures across our nation, screens are contributing to the childhood obesity epidemic. Approximately 30% of Canadian children are overweight between the ages of 5 to 11. Of these 30%, 12% are obese. Yet only a quarter of children across Canada meet national screen time guidelines. Looking at how children spend time after school, 76% of those 5 to 19 report watching TV, playing a computer or video game, or reading. 61% of Canadian parents strongly or somewhat agree that their children and youth spend too much time on screens. In Ontario, parents report that girls average over 2.5 hours and boys average over 3 hours of screen time each day. As you can see, the percentage of children in Ontario who meet the guidelines for screen time is low. Children in particular are at a greater risk for increased health concerns due to the developmental, psychosocial, and physical changes required at this life stage. Developmentally, screens affect the chemical composition of brains through neuroplasticity. When children are exposed to increased amounts of screen time, it may cause disruption to the developing brain, rewiring itself due to input from the environment. Not only that, evidence supports early years as formative, with 3/4 of children exhibiting unhealthy behaviors into adulthood. This increases the risk for chronic diseases such as heart disease, high blood pressure, and cancer, among others. Finally, the environment plays a key role with social interactions, relationship building, and emotional connectedness, all essential for a sense of connection to oneself and the world around them. Early stage prevention and intervention are critical. Physical activity is essential for brain health, emphasizing it as a protective factor in generating new neural pathways to support better learning. Screen time is independently associated with negative health outcomes. In fact, research shows higher screen use is linked to lower levels of physical fitness, unhealthy weights, and higher rates of chronic disease, poor cognitive development, language development, and attention skills in the early years. Negative consequences are even more prominent when screens are combined with decreased physical activity, increased calorie consumption, and duration of sleep. Increased screen time exposure may negatively affect mental health, causing, for example, depression, anxiety, and behavior problems, and also affect academic achievement in children. For example, sleep is essential for cognitive development and mental health. A healthy sleep is associated with adequate sleep duration, good quality, suitable timing, and absence of sleep disturbances. Literature consistently shows a clear connection between an increase in screen-based sedentary behavior and a decline in level of physical activity, especially as children age. So let's take a look now at the screen time guidelines in order to understand where children and youth should be sitting, or perhaps dancing. Canada created the world's first ever 24-hour movement guidelines, harmonizing scientific recommendations for physical activity, sedentary behavior, and sleep under a single recommendation. For children ages 0 through 4, guidelines include recommendations for moving, sleeping, and sitting. With regards to technology, children under the age of 2 should not be permitted to view screens, nor should they be restrained for more than an hour at a time in a stroller or high chair, for example. Children 2 to 4 years, screen time should be no more than 1 hour, but less is better, not being restrained for more than 1 hour at a time. With regards to the guidelines, for those ages 5 to 17, the categories of sweat and step replace the move category. No more than 2 hours per day of recreational screen time should be consumed with a focus on limited sitting for extended periods. A reminder that this is above and beyond academic screen time. The province responded to this public health issue through implementation of the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, also known as HPCC, an intergovernmental initiative to support child health. 4 themes were implemented from 2015 through 2018 for 9 months each. As I mentioned, we focused on theme 4, power off and play. This slide provides an overview and sequence of our work. Our first 2 initial steps included a rapid literature review to scope the problem and an ethics consultation. From there, we developed a suite of data tools containing a communication plan, timeline, an interview guide, and a standardized data table. As part of our communication plan, we created a team email through Gmail, Screen Time Team UW. It was accessible to all team members, ensuring timely and consistent communication. In partnership with OPHA, our team conducted an environmental scan to compile an inventory of interventions and serve as a strategic reference for planning and promotion of interventions. Key informant interviews were conducted with 10 communities. This inventory provides a baseline for public health units and community organizations attempting to address recreational screen usage moving forward. It also opens the doors to leverage network opportunities to inform best practices and upstream initiatives. Here's a list of 10 communities we interviewed across Ontario, with the red dots marking the location of each on the map. Convenient sampling was utilized based on the following criteria: response rate, resources for implementation, size of community, and diverse population, including urban, rural, north, south, francophone, and Indigenous. We used the evidence-based public health model for our environmental scan, following the first 4 steps, from defining the problem through to synthesizing the information and relating it to practice. While there was a variation in the ways that communities implemented activities, all communities implemented multiple health intervention strategies using the 4 strategies listed. Education and awareness and social marketing were the most commonly implemented approaches, while supportive environment and policy approaches were less commonly cited. Several common themes were identified during the interview. I'll review a snapshot of activities for each strategy. For education and awareness, successful activities included the official presence at Parent Advisory Council meetings and local festivals, workshops and toolkits developed for educators and childcare workers on how to increase physical activity in their setting, screen time tracking sheets for families to log screen time, gardening and healthy cooking workshops. For social marketing, some examples include utilizing Facebook and Twitter to promote Power Off and Play messaging, a video campaign with 3 key social marketing messages. Number 1, the importance of FaceTime over screen time and limiting screen time for infants and toddlers, ways to replace screen time for older children, and awareness among parents. There was also the creation of information packages that included posters, infographics, and pamphlets. For supportive environment, examples include equipment purchases, such as sprinklers, pool toys, basketball equipment, among others. These are provided to provide an opportunity to engage in outdoor play. Storybook walking trails were also mentioned throughout the communities. One school started an outdoor classroom in an attempt to change the learning environment and get back to nature. Finally, for policy, one community highlighted the design of a policy template for improving the food available at local arenas, ensuring there were healthier options available. Another community created through the Recreation Department implemented a rule of no cell phone usage during day camp for kids and counselors. They provided walkie-talkies instead. And finally, a camp had an informal no tech device policy where they made it clear prior to camp of this policy. Instead, they purchased and distributed disposable cameras to engage families and allow photo memories to be made. The results indicate interventions were designed to decrease screen time, promote physical activity and food literacy programs as a replacement to screen time, and create supportive environments that offer non-screen related activities and or implemented policies at organizational or municipal levels. Additionally, interventions reach the target audience, children ages 0 through 12, as well as parents and families, teachers, child care workers, and the broader public. Finally, interventions were categorized as school, community, or home family-based interventions. Within the findings, there are 5 major facilitators for change. The first one is building strong partnerships and community participation. Some examples include the community consultations at the outset of planning that were critical to success, as well as surveys of the target population and engagement of neighborhood action teams, for example, were effective in getting local buy-in. Secondly, designing sustainable interventions. Examples included strong partnerships with community champions, libraries and schools were keys to success, along with capacity building and knowledge transfer, equipped some partners to continue with interventions after the funding ended. Thirdly, responding to social determinants of health is an important indicator to make change. Identification of socioeconomic barriers to participation, as well as designing programs to increase inclusion and equity, for example, covering transportation costs and targeting lower-income neighborhoods. The fourth facilitator is promoting adult role modeling by using interactive family events to activate more play connection between parents and their children. For example, designing activities at parks that engaged adults and deterred their own use of the device while children played independently. Finally, creating a supportive environment for policy changes. This may be done by engaging champions passionate on the topic, such as parents, public school nurses, and health professionals. Although policy changes may not be immediately possible, the strategy is to create an environment where conversations are happening. The list of barriers are noted here, bringing particular attention to the pervasiveness of screens in society. Feedback from educators conveyed they did not feel equipped to counsel effectively on the screen time topic and did not know where to access resources. Knowledge and awareness was limited. As well, in most communities, screen time behaviors of parents and adults were described as a major challenge while targeting interventions. Finally, policy interventions were perceived as difficult to achieve due to limited data and unfavorable responses. Examples of school-based interventions within the literature that have undergone evaluation include in-class instruction about nutrition, physical activity, media, physical education programs, teacher training, and food service modifications. One study found that classroom-based lessons with an automated monitoring device to control screen time at home was associated with the most significant decrease in screen time. Community-based interventions include family workshops and extracurricular group physical activities, while home-based interventions include TV time monitors and parent education programs. A review of interventions using family-based strategies determined that including a parental component was associated with significant reductions in sedentary behaviors, particularly among preschool children. Behavior modification techniques are often used to reduce screen time, including goal setting, self-monitoring, and rewards or reinforcement. In addition to the evidence-based recommendations mentioned, the Ontario HPCC community interviews revealed effective operational strategies such as relaunching interventions from previous games that were effective, sharing resources with other communities, and building stakeholder relationships with parents and community partners. These strategies help to mitigate challenges, such as time-restricted funding periods and a limited time frame for the implementation of activities. And as we come to the close for this session, the use of harm reduction strategies are suggested to influence healthy weights in childhood through supportive self-management skills. Adoption of a two-step approach is recommended to include reduction of recreational screen use and reduction of screen use while promoting healthy behavior change through increased physical activity and/or dietary strategies. Finally, a comprehensive model with multi-level interventions targeting upstream policy has been proven to address complex health concerns, most notably in a tobacco reduction rate. A comprehensive model for the reduction of screen use should include downstream approaches such as individual counseling to decrease knowledge and skills, for example in a doctor's office for patients regarding screen time guidelines. Midstream approaches would include utilizing social media platforms to change screen time social norms, and upstream strategies would focus on healthy public policy and regulatory mechanisms to create supportive environments. Community organizations and public health units are well positioned to continue educating community leaders and advocate for screen time reduction in childhood. Limiting screen time and replacing its use with healthier alternatives is the preferable intervention to address this public health issue, while addressing upstream policies and encouraging high-level community participation are essential. Technology will continue to embed itself in our lives. Future research should explore alternative family-based options to reduce screen time, while concurrently considering whether any potential benefits are existent among screen time activities used among children. I'd like to pass the floor over to Rachel now.
Hello, everyone. Am I heard? Can everyone hear me okay? Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me speak on this webinar today. My name is Rachel Schafer, and I'm a public health nurse at the Thunder Bay District Health Unit in the Healthy Living Program. I also chair the OZPAP Sedentary Behavior Work Group, who recently completed the Less Sitting is Better campaign, which is what I'm here to discuss today. So I'll begin with explaining who OZPAP is. OZPAP is the Ontario Society for Physical Activity Promoters in Public Health. The Sedentary Behavior Work Group is a work group that works under the OZPAP executive. The work group is comprised of health promoters, public health nurses, health educators, and physical activity specialists in the fields of sedentary behavior and physical activity from across Ontario. We have members from the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Region of York Public Health, Peel Region, Algoma Public Health, Northwestern Health Unit, KFLA Public Health Unit, and Ottawa Public Health. The work group was originally formed in 2016. Our purpose is to ultimately collaborate on creating evidence-based key messages on the topic of sedentary behavior for both public health professionals and the public. As previously stated, I'm here to ultimately talk to you about the Less Sitting is Better campaign, which was developed by the OZPAP Sedentary Behavior Work Group to raise awareness and spread key messages related to sedentary behavior. The target population was adults 18 to 64 years of age. Through research, anecdotal evidence, and discussion with members of the work group and external consultants, this was decided for a variety of reasons. One of the main reasons was the release of the 24-hour movement guidelines for children and youth and the lack thereof such guidelines for adults. We felt this was still an important issue for adults to address to ultimately reduce their risk of chronic disease or at least be aware of the correlation with prolonged sitting. We chose to use the same concept of the 24-hour movement guidelines and focus on an important message, which is the whole day matters. We really tried to highlight in our materials which I will show you in the slides to come. This was meant to be a turnkey campaign where people could literally just pick up the guide and run with it. We wanted to make this as usable as possible. The whole campaign, up until the release this past fall 2018, took about 1 year in the making. We began by developing key messages around sedentary behavior. Many things were done to shape and develop our key messages for our project. A major component of this was the background research, which was conducted by more than a few members of the group, and the following themes emerged or were identified. There are large differences between promoting sedentary behavior versus promoting physical activity. In the absence of guidelines for adults, this remains an increasing issue. Sedentary behavior is an important risk and awareness is needed. Sedentary behavior also rises as age increases, especially into the 70s. Adults are role models and parental awareness is important. We also tried to keep our messaging basic and simple. We also utilized previously developed key messages which were developed at a 2017 sedentary behavior workshop hosted by PARC and the Northern Ontario Health Promoters Network with permission. These were extremely helpful and complementary to the development of our own. We utilized a health belief model by Glantz et al. For guidance, and we consulted key informants. These key informants included Jason Hogg, the Supervisor of Public Health Information and Health Communications at Ottawa Public Health, Dr. Alana LeBlanc, J.P. Valavolita, who is a health educator in the Community and Health Services Department at the Regional Municipality of York. Their contributions should not go unnoticed. We tried to be as effective as possible in disseminating our information to our audience and reaching them with the importance of trying to reduce sitting time. The campaign is ultimately comprised of an electronic and printable guide for partners and supporters, which can be used as a social media toolkit and includes all the materials hyperlinked within it. The guide for partners and supporters also suggests messaging for posts, a hashtag, and a suggested month to post the material. This is just an example of a page taken from the guide for partners and supporters. As you can see, after much of the research, we really tried to drive home very easy, simple, everyday things that everyone of all shapes, sizes, and abilities can do to move a little more and sit a little less. We attempted to emphasize the difference between being physically inactive and sedentary, and that although we may reach the recommended physical activity guidelines of 150 minutes or more of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week, if we are still spending most of our days sitting, we are still at risk for chronic disease. The graphic materials specifically included an electronic and printable infographic, as seen above, as well as 8 tile graphics related to 8 key messages from our infographic. All the materials were developed in French, English, and Chinese and available in PDF, JPEG, and used for printing. As mentioned, we depicted the messages within the infographic to create tiles, such as the one above. This is an example of one which focuses on education and awareness. We tried to be very clear in our definition of sedentary behavior and ensure that the literacy was at a more universal level and understandable for everyone. And most of all, we attempted to emphasize that the whole day matters. We seek to describe what sedentary behavior was and included a statistic to drive home how many people are at risk in Canada. We called this the what. The next tile emphasizes it is important to be less sedentary, and specifically that even if we are meeting the recommended physical activity guidelines as previously discussed, if we are spending most of our days sitting, we are still at risk for chronic diseases. This last example is one of our call to actions. We tried to find practical, easy things we can do to mitigate sedentary behaviors as workers, individuals, older individuals, and as a family, while emphasizing the whole day matters. We were also very cautious of not having screens in the infographic or promoting screen time, as well as being very cautious not to have someone appear sleeping, as we know sleep is a healthy behavior. We are cautious not to have anyone sitting and eating and sitting and reading, as we know not all sitting is created equally. As you can see here, we continue to track the reach on social media. This is specifically a screenshot of some of the Twitter accounts using the campaign. On the right are some of the places that it has been shared and utilized. Organizations have used the materials for a variety of things, including internal workplace campaigns, presentations, as posters and print materials, and for social media. As far as evaluation goes, it is very difficult to evaluate and track an online campaign. However, we continue to track the use of the campaign on social media through Twitter accounts and hashtag counts. We also try to keep track of requests from organizations as best we can. We also hope to develop a future online survey to measure the recognition of it and or if the messages have resonated with individuals in the months to come. The work group continues to work hard to promote the campaign. We will be having discussions regarding continued evaluation, and we update each other each meeting on our respective dissemination of the materials. We are currently in conversation regarding our next steps as a work group and seek to potentially research and or create messages related to the concepts shown above. Not all sitting is created equally, and attempt to answer the question, how do we live in a world of screens? So to conclude, we all live in a world of screens and are often required to spend much of our occupational time sitting within our work environment. It's important to note that there are still many easy things we can do to reduce our sedentary behavior and ultimately reduce our risk of chronic disease. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and please feel free to contact me regarding any of the campaign materials. I believe I'll be able to answer questions at the end, and I'm going to pass it off to Lynne now.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Very interesting campaign, and glad to hear that you're tracking that. Yeah, we are all still sitting as we are listening to this webinar, so a reminder, you might want to get up and shake it out for a bit. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about research on reducing screen time and some strategies to promote healthy eating for children and families. The research was conducted as part of our support from the Nutrition Resource Center to the Healthy Kids Community Challenge for Theme 4, Power Up and Play. The list of resources or references that I'm going to speak about are available on our website and also at the end of the presentation, just so you're aware of that. So to start off with, there's been an abundance of research on screen time and dietary behavior in children. Most of it is related to television. Eating while watching TV, for example, is associated with poor diet quality among children and more sugar-sweetened beverage consumption, intake of higher fat, higher sugar foods, and fewer vegetables and fruit. Children who routinely eat meals while viewing television have diets that include fewer vegetables and fruit and more pizza, snack foods, and soft drinks. There's also been some research to show an association between low socioeconomic status and the increased likelihood of eating while watching TV. So the strategy here is indicated with a star. The strategy we're trying to promote is reducing eating and drinking while using screens, any type of screens, and encouraging screen-free family meals. In terms of screen time and distracted eating or unhealthy weights in children, the research is, again, mostly around television. Watching TV is associated with overweight among children. Eating while watching TV is associated with overweight among children. And eating in front of screens can lead to mindless or distracted eating in children and adults and cause them to consume excess calories and promote unhealthy weight gain. So the goal here is to encourage mindful eating and giving food the attention it deserves. And the strategy is to reduce eating and drinking while using screens. The research on screen time and sugar-sweetened beverage consumption in children and youth, we know that sugar-sweetened beverage comprises about 22% of teen beverage consumption. Sugar-sweetened beverages are primarily consumed at home and during screen time in the afternoon and evenings. And teens are mainly consuming sugar-sweetened beverages parents purchase for them and to consume at home. Watching TV more than 5 hours daily was associated with daily sugar-sweetened beverage consumption and obesity, and also with inadequate physical activity and inadequate sleep. So the strategy here is reduce eating and drinking while using screens. Because parents provide the child's main contextual environment for television viewing and using screens, they can be viewed as the key players and central agents of change in promoting healthy behaviors and limiting screen time, as well as sugar-sweetened beverage consumption. Research on screen-free family meals and healthier eating in children shows that family meals and eating meals away from TV is, again, linked with healthier food choices and better nutrient intakes. Eating away from screens is contributing to healthy eating in children, higher intakes of vegetables and fruit, and lower intakes of sugar-sweetened beverages. Watching TV during dinner can actually counteract the positive effects of family meals on diet. So in this case, the strategy is to encourage screen-free family meals. Cooking and eating together have many benefits: healthier meals and healthier diets, positive role modeling opportunities for parents, caregivers, and even older siblings, food literacy and skill development, social interaction, and even positive protective factors in the teen years. Family meals provide this protective factor through more structured and routine that comes with eating meals together. It will also link with reducing unsupervised time away from home and facilitating daily communication opportunities for families when they're eating together. So the strategy here is replacing screen time with planning and preparing meals, eating meals together, and also no screens at the table. Some of the strategies that were used during the Healthy Kids Community Challenge included strategies for putting screens away at mealtime and even when eating out with family and friends. Another activity, most of the screen time does actually occur while children are waiting for meals, and so preparing meals or getting outside in the garden are some activities that can counteract screen time. Studies have shown that gardening, in fact, increases knowledge and preference and consumption of vegetable and fruit among children, and it's more pronounced impact on increasing vegetable intake. Children can get involved in planning the gardens, maintaining and harvesting in the garden. And they can use the harvested produce to prepare dishes such as salads and other meals, all the while getting them outside to play and reducing screen time. So the strategy here is getting involved in a family or community garden. So just to recap, some of the behaviors that will help reduce screen time while promoting healthy eating are to reduce eating and drinking in front of screens, encouraging screen-free family meals, and replacing screen time with other activities such as planning and preparing meals or gardening. For reducing sugary beverages while using screens, we, of course, would be promoting water as the beverage of choice or not having any beverages or meals while using screens. And during the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, we did have a theme called Water Does Wonders. So we would really encourage continued use of that key messaging when you're communicating with the public. Now I'd just like to give you some examples of some activities and ideas that you could use to reduce screens, to encourage screen-free family meals. So the device-free dinner is available. It's an activity website available through commonsensemedia.org. They have created a number of resources to support parents and educators. There's examples of a family media plan, tips for getting kids off screens, and ideas for school events. There's even some videos that you might consider using. Just a caveat here that this is an American website, so just so you are aware. Another interesting project, again, an American resource, is the Family Dinner Project. This consists of a newsletter that comes out daily with a recipe for a family to make dinner together. They also have featured family dinner challenges and other activities, so you might want to just check out that for some ideas if you're contemplating a campaign in your community. I think Megan or Rachel mentioned apps, so this is an example of an app that will called Dinnertime Plus, that will help control screen time and come up with reminders of when to turn off screens. And just some of the community activities that some of the health units across Ontario have put out this one is an example from York Region. It's called Let's Cook. Take the pledge to cook more often with fresh ingredients, and there's all kinds of ideas here to learn how to cook using more fruits and vegetables, cooking together, and eating together with family and friends. So just to encourage you to look at some of those activities. There was many great activities that came out as part of the Healthy Kids Community Challenge as well in terms of the fruit and vegetable theme, Choose to Boost Vegetables and Fruit. So you can look at some of the Healthy Kids Challenge activities there. There's also some educational curriculum supports. Here's two examples, Cook It Up and Green Thumb. These are part of the Bright Bites program. You can have a look at those. These are badges that teachers can use to motivate students, educate and motivate students in the classroom. And finally, I would just encourage you to visit the Nutrition Resource Center website. We have a number of other webinars that we've participated in which discuss unpacking food literacy, what works best for food skills for children, for example, is one of the webinars we did. We have resources such as the one indicated here, Eat Right, Be Active. We have a series of 3 for different ages and stages, and these are guides for caregivers of young children. We also have a podcast series called Food and Health Today, where we discuss issues around healthy eating. And our Nutrition Navigator, we have over 300 resources that you can look at that will promote healthy eating. And of course, our website, we have a whole Healthy Kids section where you can download the resources we developed for the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, including the screen time resources I've talked about today. So here's a list of my references, and I think we will finish here, and we have time to open up to some questions from the audience, and they can be directed at myself or Rachel or Megan, and I encourage you to type your questions in the chat box, and we can tackle answering some of those questions. So I'm going to just go back up and see some of the previous questions. I believe some questions came out during Megan's presentation. So Megan and Rachel, I believe you can unmute and you can answer as we go through.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. I can address the one that Holly and Mary Catherine have brought forward. Is that okay to go ahead now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to inform you this was just a snapshot of the facilitators that were available that promoted and helped them facilitate the programming. So, of course, municipalities and parks and recreation and libraries, they were all part of our heading of building partnerships and that I had mentioned within the presentation. So that would be where that was a successful component to facilitating that within. And then to go along, I can give an example, which the Storybook Trails is a great example of how community partnership really brought that together. So communities had mentioned that the Storybook Trails helped partnerships within the community. They partnered with the libraries and the Parks and Recreation, the municipality, and what happened was they featured walks through local trails that had signposts and encouraging families and children to walk the trail, to read the story. So the way they would do it is one community had the library choose the story they thought was great for children based on 0 to 6, and then they would take apart the book, and then the Parks and Recreation was in charge of finding or creating a little stand that the story would go in, and it would be locked, and there would be a glass so that it wouldn't get damaged, and they assessed for the height so that children could see it as well, and the trails weren't that long so that children could walk. That was, I guess, ideally what they had mentioned, and they would, as well, the Parks and Recreation would maintain the trail and the posts around that. So that one was a really great example of how partnerships came together within the community and helped mobilize those activities. I hope I answered that question there.
Thanks, Megan. I think we had another question around a reference. You were talking about in-class instructions about healthy eating and physical activity as an effective intervention. I believe you had references with your presentation.
I did, and I did post that one specifically. It's by Schmidt et al. in the year 2012. It's on the notes there, systematic review of effective strategies for reducing screen time among young children.
Great, thank you. Skipping along to some questions for Rachel. Just a question around whether the work group has plans for similar campaign for children and youth.
Yeah, so, and I also typed it back in the chat, we haven't specifically discussed or planned that as a specific next step, but it's certainly something that we've talked about previously and we'll talk about again because it's a very important consideration. So I guess the answer would be possibly.
Great, thank you. Just remind folks that if they have any questions, they can pop those in the chat box. Just going back up, I'm wondering, there was something about, there are references indicating introduction to screens can begin from 18 months. I believe that was a question for you, Megan.
Yes, if someone wanted to, I'm trying to find that here. I needed a little more clarification if you're asking me about that, or I guess I don't understand completely what you're asking there. Please.
Okay, I don't see a clarification for that one. I see a question around picky eating as a common problem for children. What are some strategies to get kids to eat more vegetables these days? I think in terms of family meals is certainly one of those strategies that are effective to have children always at the table with their parents and introducing new foods on a regular basis and encouraging children to try something new. Young children in particular have neophobia, a fear of trying new food. So just seeing food on the table, it may take 8 to 10 times before a child will accept a new food, but having that food accessible, available, having them touch it, see it, smell it, can increase their or reduce their fear of that food. And again, the gardening strategies, as I mentioned during the presentation, are very effective at just really helping children understand where food comes from, having them participate in growing a food and then actually touching it, washing it, tasting it, testing it, really can help in that regard as well. I think we have covered all the questions. Perhaps Megan and Rachel, you maybe have a couple of closing remarks, and we will finalize the webinar. Megan?
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to us here. Myself or my screen time group, we would be pleased to answer any additional questions if when you go away you have anything further you'd like to inquire about. So my email as well as our Screen Time UW email is also on my slides there, so please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks. And Rachel?
Hi, everyone. I just want to, on behalf of the Sedentary Behavior Work Group, thank everyone for listening in and learning a little bit about our campaign. And my email is also listed on my slides. Please feel free to contact me for any information about the campaign, the materials, use of it, anything at all, or if you have any questions, we're more than open to answer and help out. Thanks again.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder to everyone who's on the call, you can download the slide deck from the bottom right corner. All of our contact information was on the slide. We will be posting a recording of this webinar in about 2 weeks. So if you want to revisit it, we will have that up on the OPHA events page in the past events area. And likewise with Ontario Public Health Association and the Nutrition Resource Centre, if you're looking for any resources, please do reach out and contact us. Go on our website and see what we have there. We do have a question about a certificate of participation. If you do require something, just please email us and we'll see what we can do according to what you need that certificate for. So thank you, Megan and Rachel, for your presentations. They were wonderful. We all learned a lot about the screen time guidelines and the sedentary behavior strategies, and do appreciate you sharing that information with our listeners today. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.